Trent Cotney and John Kenney are dedicated to helping the construction industry with legal business and safety challenges. Welcome to this week's episode of Law and Mortar.
Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody to our 100th episode of Law and Mortar, Big 100. And as always, I got John Kenney with me. John, we made it to 100.
Hey, I've been waiting for this day. This is a big one, man. Centennial. I love
It
it.
is. It is. Before we get into, we're going to talk about a lot, right? But let's talk a little bit about Law and Mortar, kind of how it came to be and the journey it's been on. I mean, you and I were talking before we got started here. We started this back in COVID, and I'm pretty sure it was like everything that we did, where, you came to my office or I came to your office and we said, hey, why don't we do a podcast and we talk about this, that, and the other. And, that's kind of how it came to be. And here we are that many years later, through all the ups and downs, the material crisis, different administrations, different things going on. And, we're still chugging along. There can't be too many other construction podcasts that have got 100 episodes out there. So,
Not
uh,
over five, almost what, 6 year, going on 6 year span, I guess now from
yeah,
20 started in 20, probably 5 years, but over 6 different years. That's crazy.
yeah, it's something. So, obviously looking forward to many to come. But what are some of your memories kind of looking back? We've talked about so many different things and answered so many questions. You think about all the, we've got today we'll have our 100th question. But what are some of your, fondest memories?
Well, I definitely love the questions of the week because that's what's on the viewers' minds the most at the time. That's a great memory, and I look, number one, we have fun, so I can never take that out. This to me is never like a job, right? It's not like we have to study for it or get ready. We come on these things and we pick out topics that are affecting the contractors the most during, the episodes, and we, take our best possible advice that we've come across throughout our careers and knowledge and everything we know, and take that simple test and put it in there and just go ahead, and I think we put it in very good conversational mode, and that's what makes these so much fun. And I've heard that from our listeners that they like it that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our comments, it's clear they're not rehearsed. It's coming off the cuff, but it's based on stuff that we're dealing with at that time, whether it's on the business side or the legal side. And, I got to tell you, my favorite part, John, is, you and I were in the same building for a few years of this, but now, we're doing our own things. We got traveling all the time. And I just like being able to catch up with you, man. I really
Yeah,
do. We talk beforehand and afterhand, and it for me that's my favorite part of just being able to talk to you and think the world of your brother. So glad we've been able to kind of take this journey together.
yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point. We're both traveling so much and we meet so many different people. And this is kind of like we're sitting down for that cup of coffee or a bottle of water, and we're able to say, okay, here's what we got going on out there. I think
Yeah,
you're right about that for sure.
yeah, and to it the world's crazy right now, right? And regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, immigration, tariffs, uncertainty, material availability, and we're getting ready to get into storm season here. It's been a very dry, April and May so far. So I don't know whether that bodes well or doesn't bode well for hurricane season, but obviously that's top of mind. When you're looking at the lay of the land, John, what do you see out there? What do you think contractors should be aware of? And kind of as we move into 2Q into summer.
I think one of the biggest things is I want to deal with anybody that's in the new construction marketplace first. I've been doing a lot of poking and reading and the stats, and even like ABC. I don't mean ABC Supply. I'm talking about Associated Builder and Contractors put out an article today or yesterday. I don't remember which day that I was reading, and I went to a couple of the developer networks. They're shutting money down, so a lot of projects that you may thought was coming in, or even if you may have a contract for, that would probably, I wouldn't count on everything. That's all I'm saying. New construction, even they're saying, is going to come to a screeching halt. So what does that mean? For roofing contractors, now, if I was mechanical contractor or somebody that I live and die 90% of my work is off of new construction, that's a big, big, big problem. But what do we love about our business the most? You got new construction, you got re-roof, and you got service. So my solemn advice is this is the time. If you're not doing enough of your business in those other two categories, you really now's the time to start making the switch and just be prepared because what was it, '08, the Great Recession kind of was the same way that when the faucet finally, they were warning us and telling us the same things I was reading in ABC and the other investment and the facility management. The same thing I was reading back then, I'm seeing the signs now. And one thing I like to do is never make the same mistake twice. The bells are there, the flags are there. So I want everybody to know, just prepare yourself.
Yeah, the it's interesting you mentioned that ABC survey. That survey that came out recently, they do like a construction price index kind of thing, and they noted that margins were down by 2.4% or 2.4 points, and that there was another survey I read recently. They said that most contractors, I think 51% of contractors, had experienced delays on projects as a result of either, the tariffs or payment issues or things of that nature. So, I think we both agree backlog is still strong. I think the issues are profitability, right? You're going to have labor rate increases as a result of some of the immigration policies that are out there. You're going to have material price increases as a result of tariffs. That uncertainty affects a lot of developers and owners that don't know whether or not they want to move forward with projects.
Right. They're holding their
So
money.
yeah, and this is the same advice that we've been given for 4 or 5 years now, and that is good business practices. Doesn't matter whether you got good times or bad times. Always prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and we'll see what happens. One thing, John, I'll admit I am a little concerned about storm season this year. If we end up with a storm season like we had last year with a couple of big hurricanes, I don't know whether or not we have the labor capacity or the materials to get that work done in any reasonable amount of time. I mean, there's people still doing work from, the two storms last year. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's still people not, I mean, I know what the Carolinas is still experiencing their issues, but right here in the state of Florida, I know people that are still in long-term rentals because they can't even get their permitting and their insurance and all the things, the contracted base. So I think you're looking at it correctly, whether it hits Florida or anywhere on the Gulf Coast or up the East Coast there is only a finite amount of labor. And actually, one of the ABC studies show this is the first time in the history of construction that the labor pool has shrunk. There's actually, we've had people leave before, but it's people are being let go and leaving, and the actual overall has dropped down. So, what does that mean for all of us? That means what we got is what we got. I think now I've heard a lot over the last couple of years. You have too that I could only get more labor, I could expand. And I think the sub labor pool has been tapped to the ultimate. I'm going around teaching a lot, working with a lot of contractors that use subs, and they're saying, you know what, they're not as dependable as they used to be. They're all over the place. Of course not, because they're stretched. Labor's labor. When we hit that ultimate spot band, and I think we're there. I think a couple major storms could put the roofing industry and construction as a whole over the cliff for this year.
Yeah, yeah. So fingers crossed on that. And me personally, I don't want any more storms. That was
Me
scary.
neither. Last year was enough.
Yeah, I'm good on that. I think we'll just wait and see. It's interesting. We're also talking. We got FRSA's Expo coming up, real quick, just a few weeks from now, and that's always a huge event every year. You and I both speak plenty of times. There's a lot of different things going on. What are you looking forward to as far as that event goes?
Well, it's a very large event for the Florida. So, anybody out there that goes to other events in your area, this is kind of like one of the big ones. There's only a few out there that draw the types of crowds that Florida draws other than the big national. And it's a good place to everyone to get together. And what I like is you can vent freely. It's a great time for the contractors get to talk about what's really going on and they're seeing in the marketplace. As we know in Florida, I'm hearing still complaints about the insurance industry, which we're all dealing with. Coding's still up in the air. That didn't get resolved in the last legislative. The building codes have changed, and I know people are still getting used to those changes. So that's great education, great camaraderie, and it's really a good place where you start to meet the new people that have joined FRSA and come in. So that to me that's one of my overall fun parts for sure.
Yeah, you know, I've loved going to FRSA. This will be my 22nd expo. 2003 was my first, and I like going for exactly what you said. I've made really good friends through FRSA.
Yep.
Not just board meetings and Lisa Payton staff and all that, but I've been bringing my son since he was 2. He'll be 16 in November. He's going to be there in the booth with me, and it's the kind of place where you see multi-generational. You'll see the grandfather, the father, the son, the grandson
Yeah.
there. Families come, and being at the Gaylord in Orlando, it's a family-friendly venue. Encourage anybody that hadn't come out to it to come see it. It's a fun time. John and I are working nonstop, but it's fun. I look forward to it every year, and it you get to see people that you only get to see at Expo. So it's
Yeah,
always
my first one was in 99. And the big
yeah,
problem worry then was Y2K. That was going to
yeah,
be the big problem everybody was talking about. So
yeah,
every year but that's the good thing. The industry gets to come together, gets to meet. It's like any show. It's like when we go to other ones, it's the same way. But this is all the Florida people get to come together and really, really discuss, what's happening in the Florida market.
yeah. And Florida is one of the few places where you can roof 365. It's a really robust market. That Texas and California are probably 3 strongest markets. So definitely looking forward to that. We got a busy 3Q and 4Q as well, but I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. John, as we kind of move forward, I don't know what the future holds. I know that we've had a very tumultuous 1Q with all the executive orders and rulings and other things coming out. I don't see that ending anytime soon. I think it will. I think you will see some steadiness probably come June or July, because as we get closer to the midterm elections, I think there needs to be greater stability. So some of this stuff that's going on with tariffs, I think, will die down. I think you might see it calm down a little bit, but I still think between judicial decisions and uncertainty and a lot of other stuff, I think we're going to be pretty busy. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, there's no doubt. I think you're also looking at anything that's happening now and even continues on to like June, the actual between cases in court and all the other stuff. But even if that was decided, our industry historically, and you've been in it a long time as well, we're another 2, 3, 4 months down the road before we even start to see the repercussions that come along with it. So I always like to make a little projection or prediction, if you want to call it. I think wherever we're settled in by the end of Q3 going into Q4 is where we're going to be next year, regardless of
Yeah,
the midterms or anything else. So whether that's good, bad, or leveled off, so it could be anywhere because I can't predict that. I'm not that good. But wherever
yeah,
we're at, I think by the time we get into Q3, Q4, the dust is going to be settled. And for the most part, that's what we're going to expect going into 26 throughout 26.
yeah. I tend to agree with that. So we're gonna do your favorite part, John. We're gonna do the 100th episode question, and then I got a special 100th episode bonus
So
that
this is
we're
our
gonna
centennial question. I love it.
centennial question. And we had I don't know how many we've got. We probably got 50, 60 questions that I'm backed up on. But I thought this one was pretty good, given that with the 100th episode you kind of get retrospective. You kind of think a little bit
Okay.
about where you come from. So this question was from Susan. Susan's question was, um, looking back, if you had to give advice to someone that's getting in the industry, what advice would you give? And she goes on to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she goes on to talk about, what are the good things that happened that you're glad you did, and what are some things that you regret that you did along the way that you would have changed. So
Wow.
I'll go ahead and start. We're being retrospective here, looking back. So, for me, I don't think I'd change anything on my end. I think everything that has happened for a reason. And I think there's a lot of things that I wish had not happened, but I think those things make you tougher. And I'm kind of looking back, I'm glad that that did. One thing looking back, I wish I had known, being a lawyer is not is a tough profession, right? I think anybody that's telling you otherwise is probably lying. I wish I had known when I started off, especially the first, 5 to 10 years, that I would get this much satisfaction out of representing the industry back then in its early days. I wish I had known this is what I can expect if I just hang in there, right? It would have made life a lot easier because I would have had something to say, okay, just stay with it, everything's gonna be great. I ended up here, but looking back, I would like to have that. I think good things that I did, obviously, getting involved in the industry has been the best thing that I've done. Getting involved with associations, I've made lifelong friends like you, John. I remember the first time you and I met, 2000, early 2000s, whatever it was. We've stayed friends ever since, and that's all my friends are in roofing. I think all of them are except for one. But and I don't have any friends that are lawyers except for people that work here with me. But all are contractors, roofers, people in the industry, and it's those are the kind of bonds that I'm really fortunate that I've met, whether it's in roofing or construction. So, what about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, going back and thinking about it, I wouldn't change anything. I thought about that a few times, but you get we all get rough patches, and I've had we all, and I'm no different than anyone else out there. I've gotten to the where I thought was the end of my ropes at different points in my career, and it just seems like all of a sudden, bam, you're ready to go to the next level. And but looking back, I guess I don't know if I'd be where I am today if I didn't have gone through everything that I went through in the industry. I saw a lot of changes for sure. I mean, definitely the industry I started in is not the industry today. And what I mean, it's not, it's nowhere near what it was. I think we're actually more sophisticated in some ways than we were. I think back when I started, it was a lot more off the sleeve. There wasn't a whole lot. Not that that's good, bad, or indifferent, it's just the way life was, right? We didn't have computers, we didn't have fax machines, we didn't have phones, so we did things differently. Today, I think we're more sophisticated. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But I like where I'm at now that I can take, and I'll stretch a little bit here. Wisdom. From the only reason I have the wisdom is because I've done it. I've seen what happens when you do A, B, or C, and hopefully the younger ones or the contractors coming up today take some of that and it makes them better. Because the only pain point I can say, there's nothing that makes you better by taking the hard road. Okay, I took the hard road to learn it. We all had to at that point in time. But if I can shorten somebody's learning curve in the same way like you do it all the time when you're giving all your advice out there. Why are we doing it? It's to make someone else's life better, give them knowledge that they may not have had. So for that, I can honestly say I'm where I need to be right now.
Yeah, sage advice. The obstacle is the way. You got to go through those tough times to gain that wisdom. And like I said, my goal is the same as yours. If I can impart some advice that helps people avoid going through some of the hardships that we've had to go through, then so be it. That's
Well,
good.
one thing, let me jump on real quick before you get to your big announcement. So everybody knows, like you said, Trent and I have been friends for a long time. And there's such a mutual respect that we had when we first met. This is the first night. And that's what we've grown off of. And why? Because he doesn't act like a lawyer. Okay. He actually can speak to everybody that he's talking to in the level that they need to hear it in. That's respect right there. And you've been great at doing that. And that's like I've always considered myself to be the contractor, but to be able to put it in when I work with crews, getting it all out there. And that's where I think we both are on that line. We know what we know, but we want to get it out there in a language everybody understands. And that's why I think you and I have been such great friends throughout these.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're the godfather of roofing. I mean, there's not anything about roofing that you don't know. And I think we both approach what we do with humility. And I think that that's something, that's why we click, because we got our battle scars, we've been through it, we know what's going on, but we don't ever get full of ourselves. And I think
No, you can't.
you got to always stay humble, you stay hungry. So because this is a special 100th episode, and for our listeners that have listened all the way to the end, I'm going to offer something very special and unique. After this video or podcast is posted, wherever it's posted, for the next 100 days, for anyone that reaches out to me and says, I want to donate to a certain construction charity, I will donate up to $100 per person for whatever construction charity you want to donate that money to. So again, 100 days after the 100th episode is posted, anyone that reaches out to me and says, or John, and says, hey, I want to give $100 to, the Roofing Alliance. I want to give $100 to Habitat for Humanity, whatever it is, happy to do that. I think John and I both believe that we always, we give back our time, we give back our money, time, talent, and treasure. And this is a momentous occasion. The fact that we've been able to put up 100 episodes says a lot, so very appreciative. And, I guess we'll end it there, John. I want to thank everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for being loyal listeners. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing doing this for another 100 episodes, or 200 or 300, or however long we can do it. But if you need to reach me, you can reach me via email at trent.cotney@arlaw.com or social at Trent Cotney. John, how can they get you?
Same way you can get me at my email at jkenney@cotneyconsulting.com or social at John Kenney. And I cannot reiterate enough is what you just said. We'd only be speaking into a mic and looking into a camera if it wasn't for you, our listeners. That's how much we appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.